Reed, thank you so much for joining today's call on the very first episode of Cape Coral Investor Network podcast. Reed, one of the reasons why I wanted to have you on today's call is because on the resale side, things are absolutely crazy, right? So you have very low inventory rates and there is a bidding war for every single property out there. On your end, it must be smooth sailing. Please tell me I'm correct.
I would say that you're mostly correct. Has anything been smooth sailing in 2020 and 2021? Obviously, yeah. I mean, I think being on the new construction side is probably a little easier than being a buyer's agent right now. Obviously we faced some challenges last year and somewhat at the beginning of this year. Everything slowed down, as far as production of building materials and building departments. But we're through the weeds on like 95% of that, as of right now.
Yeah, and one of the things that I've noticed from just doing several sales with you is that the purchase price when some of these guys are going under contract to when the property is actually completed, the appreciation is almost immediate. So it pays to go under contract and start the process. From an investor perspective, what kind of conversations are you having with them? And is it super easy to get them on board?
Yeah, I mean, most people, there are a lot of areas of the country that have started to kind of price themselves out, and Southwest Florida is not there yet in general. Most of my clients are seeing, still very, very good cash flow returns. We've obviously had to increase pricing over the last year, as has every builder in America. You only have to be on the news for about 2 minutes and you hear about lumber and shingles and siding, and, the costs have gone up, but we're still way lower than most places in the country. Our price to rent ratio is still really, really strong. So, it's been a good year in terms of that.
Yeah, one of the conversations that I have with investors all the time, and this happens, pretty daily, is that a lot of them have cash and they're trying to figure out where to place that money because cash is a very poor position to be in. We're all anticipating inflation. When you look at all commodities, gold, gas, lumber, it's becoming very, very clear that inflation is real. And this is not a temporary inflation. This will probably stick around for a while. So a lot of the investors I'm talking to are actually telling me that they don't want to be in cash, that they'd rather be in an asset that's producing cash flow and that their tenant is paying down their mortgage. What kind of conversations are you having with your investors?
Almost identical. It's funny. I just got off a client with a call who's a Dave Ramsey follower, and Dave believes everything should be paid for, and I think that's not a terrible place to be, but a lot of other investors that I'm talking to are wanting to leverage as much as they can right now because interest rates are low, and if inflation does happen, which it certainly appears that it's pretty likely. You'd rather be levered up in that situation because, your loan balance isn't going to change, but, the amount of the rents will probably have to go up with inflation. So the cash flow numbers that people are seeing right now, which is $200 to $300 a month, give or take, depending on the situation, though I would anticipate those cash flow numbers to only improve in the coming months and years.
Reed, I will not allow you to bash Dave Ramsey.
That wasn't a bash. It was just that there's two perspectives.
So I disagree with that as well. So for me is I follow Dave Ramsey on my personal finance. On my investing strategy, I do not follow Dave Ramsey. I'm more of a Robert Kiyosaki, where I think debt, so long as you're buying asset producing assets, right? Not asset producing, cash flow producing assets. I think that's very good. And it's one of the key advantages that separates real estate versus other investment options. So if you were to look to try to buy, $200,000 worth of stocks, you're going to pay $200,000. The benefit of real estate is that you get to leverage. So it could be 5 to 25% down, and the rest of it is borrowed. One of the interesting points with regards to inflation is that you might be borrowing at a 3.5, even 4% interest rate, but inflation has historically been around 2, everyone's anticipating it to be much higher. In fact, most people are saying that the government is underreporting the amount of inflation, and you can just go to the gas station and figure out that that's true.
Yeah, yeah.
And so when you think about buying real estate and your expenses are all fixed, they're tied into a 30-year mortgage, but your revenue are a variable, they're going to keep going up. You're actually taking advantage of inflation. So it makes cash a really poor position as the value of your dollar keeps going down. The stock market, everyone's anticipating at least a 10 to 20% hit in the next 6 months or so. It makes real estate a very, very obvious pick as far as a way to deploy your cash. Reed, would you agree?
Yeah, I think that's very, very true. And I'm hearing that every day as I talk to investors and, other real estate people. A lot of the strategies that you're talking about, we speak about on a daily basis.
Yeah. So Reed, one of the things that you have to do on your end as a developer is obviously acquire land. You have to package deals together, get loan approvals, and put them out to the marketplace. So you're constantly looking at new opportunities and new ways to put products together for investors. Can you walk us through the strategy of how you go about doing so and what you have going down in the months to come?
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. The land is, it's while Southwest Florida is really flush with vacant building lots, we really don't have any shortage of that. Buying the right lots is really what the important thing is. And probably the most important strategy that I employ in buying land is I don't buy them directly in the hot zone, so to speak. So if there's a really hot pocket, the reason why I don't buy those lots is because they're going to be super expensive. What I try to do is look at where the hot pockets of activity are and then get like half a mile away from them. So that way, as that pocket of activity expands, which it almost always does, it kind of, my clients get to take advantage of, that expansion of the hot area. So their properties tend to go up in value a little bit quicker. So we're looking at several areas right now. Right now we're obviously in Port Charlotte and Northport and in Cape Coral. We're going to be adding some areas around the Rotunda area, Englewood, Punta Gorda. We've identified some areas where we can get land at the right price to accentuate the cash flow for all of our buyers and your potential buyers, but still getting the land, in an area where renters are going to be plentiful. There's no environmental issues. 95% of our lots are won't require flood insurance once there's a house on it. So we're very strategic about where we buy.
Yeah, I would have to agree. We've been selling your product for a while now. And I mean, one of the things that I love about Southwest Florida as a whole is that when you look at it from just a Google map and you scan all of the United States, it's very evident and very clear something special is happening there, right? So it's underpopulated, undervalued. There's buildable land still available, and you're near beaches. And let's be honest, in this type of environment that we're in, most people don't want to be in crowded cities. In fact, I'm getting a lot of requests from renters who actually want to live in more secluded areas. And as an investor, it makes sense to invest in up and coming areas as opposed to areas that are already development. Is that also part of your strategy?
Yeah, I'm seeing a lot of the same things. So we buy a combination of, more densely populated areas, along with some areas that if you, just looked at it on Google Maps, you'd be like, wow, that's kind of out in the frontier a little bit. But there are a certain percentage of renters that really want that. As long as they're within 5 to 10 minutes of the nearest, grocery store and Home Depot, some people like having, vacant lots around them. Their kids have a place to, walk through the woods or, ride their four-wheelers and different things like that. So there's definitely two different types of renters when it comes to that.
Yeah. So one of the things that I deal with investors all the time is most of the investors I speak to, and I'm sure you speak the same, they're dentists, they're accountants, they're lawyers. They have a full-time job, and they look at the map and they figure out where they want to invest. And Southwest Florida seems like a very obvious and appealing place to invest in, but they don't have a team in place. And so one of the things that they look for is a turnkey provider. And the goal of that is to try to reduce some of the brain damage that
A
takes
good way
place.
to put it.
Right? They try to reduce some of the brain damage that's involved in trying to figure everything out on your own. Can you walk us through kind of the team that's offered, and feel free to go specifically into the property management, insurance, and lending.
Yeah, we really try to produce a product that, like you said, it is really hands off for the people. And the majority of investors that I work with too, they don't live necessarily in Florida. They could be from the West Coast, East Coast, Midwest, wherever. But yeah, we have a full team in place where we can really take it all the way from A to Z. Obviously, we're the builder developer, but once the house is completed is when some of the brain damage comes in. You want to make sure you've got the right management team in place, and we've been through. We've paid some of the dumb tax, so to speak. We also have a couple of preferred lenders you can work with for domestic clients, international clients. We have a lender set up for that. From a homeowners insurance standpoint, the girl that I work with over in Fort Myers, I've been working with her since '03 when I moved here. So, and she gets great rates, great customer service. So really a lot of the pain points that people could potentially have, we try to eliminate as many of those. And, as soon as someone signs a contract with us, the first thing that we do is we send out a PDF document that literally walks them through the balance of the transaction. If you have this question, call this person. If you got a question about insurance, you call over here. The title company and your closer's phone number and email address is right here. So we really try to be comprehensive when it comes to all that.
Yeah, and so I'm going to be interviewing Chris from Great Jones. He's a portfolio manager there from the property management side next week. And from our perspective is we're not going to recommend someone that we don't trust, because the
Yeah.
last thing we want is negative feedback. So we work with the creme of la creme. And I'll tell you a personal story. So I used to recommend a local property manager. And what happened is, as I kept giving him more clients, he had bandwidth issues where he wasn't able to handle the amount of clients that were given to him. The turnaround time wasn't quick enough, and he didn't provide the automatic payments, the technology that you expect from a large provider. So Great Jones, which is one of your preferred vendors for the property management side, they actually operate like a technology firm where they use a lot of high tech with the screening process, identifying the best tenant for that property. And they also have an account management team, a property management team. Investors have their own portals, and even the tenants have their own 1-800 number to call. And so they work with a lot of the same larger REITs that are out there. And the whole goal is to make it simple. Most investors who are investing in this region have a full-time job, have a full-time investment. And Reed, you and I are fixated on making sure that the investors we work with have all the resources necessary to be successful in this market.
Yeah, yeah, you've got to have the tools as a remote investor. You've got to know who you can call for what, and the response time needs to be fairly quick. Usually it's within a couple of hours, but worst case scenario, it could be early the next day. But yeah, and that's one of the ways that we choose the people that we work with. It really comes down to the customer experience.
Yeah. Reed, sometimes when I meet with an investor, they'll tell me, hey, I've done a custom build before. It was impossible to find the right lot, identify the right builder, figure out how I want the building to be configured. The cost kept going up. The final purchase price was way different than the quoted price, and it was just a headache overall. Reed, with that in mind, can you walk us through the difference between buying a property from a spec builder versus going out into the marketplace and trying to build a house on your own?
Well, yeah, you've kind of already described what could be a semi-custom or custom experience. And that's great if that's your primary residence outside of the massive price increases. And yeah, some of those guys do kind of suck you in with a low price and then hit you with change orders and what have you. And, quite honestly, over the last year, we've actually had to have a couple change orders here and there. I mean, when lumber prices triple, they triple. It is what it is. But I think we're through the woods on all that. With us as a spec builder, we're breaking ground in our Southwest Florida market on 20 to 40 homes per month. once the home reaches building permit stage, meaning we actually have the building permit in hand, we're able to lock in our pricing with all of our suppliers and vendors and what have you. So we're able to, once we've got the building permit, we know exactly what the price is going to be. We're locked with our suppliers, our vendors, our subcontractors. So there will be no surprises at the closing table.
So one of the things that I've learned over the years is that it often seems attractive to work with someone who's more niche and someone who's smaller and someone who doesn't have a wide scheme operations. But what I've learned firsthand is that you want to work with a provider who is building several at a time, right? So they're not buying one cabinet; they're buying several cabinets. They're
Yeah,
buying they're buying everything in bulk, and
truckload of cabinets. Yes.
right, because the point is you don't want to be short that one customizable item. And I'm talking specifically for the investor side, or quite honestly, even for the custom side in this market. There is a bit of a realization where you have to figure out who's going to win in that buying war for that refrigerator, right? When someone's ordering 30 at a time and
Right.
another person's buying one, who's going to win? And who has a team in place? And again, working with developers directly. Sometimes you used to buy it from Tampa, now you have to buy it from Miami. You're kind of going around figuring out. You want to prefer those builders who are operating at a large scale. Reed, can you just talk about the scale of your operation and the advantages that it presents?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, in Southwest Florida alone, like I said, we're breaking ground on 20 to 40 homes per month, which is, we're not the biggest builder, we're not the smallest, but we're towards the top in terms of volume. But we also have operations where we're building homes in several other places around the country, and that just adds to our buying power. And we have the infrastructure, to handle, like you said, if you've got to switch on the fly and one supplier can't get you refrigerators, well, we've got multiple suppliers that we can go to in order to fill our orders. Um, in 2020, where there were definitely some hiccups, nothing that anybody could do about it. Any builder that tells you I never missed a beat in 2020, I hit every completion date, I don't know if I trust that person. But that being said, we did the best we could. We hit the date on a lot of them, but a handful of them, it is what it is. But the way we're set up, being in multiple states, with a good company infrastructure, we have fewer problems than probably anybody.
Yeah, and I would definitely attest to that. One of the things that I want to highlight, which is I think extremely important, is the difference between a builder who asks you to do the construction financing in your name versus a builder who's a spec builder and will take on the entire construction financing on their own. Ray, can you kind of just speak to the difference and just how important that is for the world to know?
It's a big difference, because when you get a construction loan with a builder, if something happens with that builder and the house ends up half finished, you're kind of stuck. And builders don't like to take over other builders' projects. The other part is construction loans are very expensive. So you're essentially paying two sets of closing costs, one on the construction loan and one on the end financing. You're also making interest payments during construction. The way we're set up is we build everything with our own money on our own spec lines. So when your client comes in to make a deposit, that deposit holds the property until completion. And then we settle everything up at the end, whether it's 20% down, or if it's cash or 1031 exchange, or however it is. Your client makes a deposit, and then we settle up at the closing table at completion.
Awesome. Reed, so I follow you on social media, and every single
Oh,
weekend you're out partying, you're out talking about how great life is in Florida. Reed, man to man, imagine I'm someone from another state, let's say California, let's say New York. Why is Florida better?
whoa, that's a loaded question. Um, I can tell you why I moved here. I mean, I love the lifestyle. I moved from Northwest Indiana, just outside of Chicago, back in 2003. Um, I think it's a fantastic place to live. I raised my three kids here, one in college, one in high school, one in middle school. So I've kind of run through the gamut of raising a family here. And it's been wonderful from a lifestyle standpoint. I love the weather, just the freedom to do things. As an investor, one of the biggest reasons why I love Florida is the landlord friendly rules. We have a saying in Florida, no pay, no stay. In other states, California, try doing an eviction in California, try doing one in New York. Even pre-COVID, those were terrible states for landlords. Where in Florida, it's 3 to 4 weeks and they're gone, if they're not paying, which happens very, very rarely. And you can hit Chris Ladd with that next week, and he'll give you, the rates, down, because they track all that stuff exactly. But it's a great state for investors for a lot of reasons. It's a combination state, I call it, where you get pretty good cash flow, you get good growth. The appreciation numbers have been strong. Obviously, the events of the last year, a lot of people are moving here. A lot of people move here every year anyway, whether they be retirees or just people that are seeking better weather. But, we kind of have a whole new class of people moving here, younger people in their 30s and 40s that are now remote workers. Their companies release them to work remotely. So we're seeing more young professionals move here, from tech sectors and different sectors, around the country. And, I think it's going to do nothing but continue to keep our economy thriving.
Yeah, for me, if I could ask the question why Florida is better, I can just look at the demographic shift that's happening. And I think about, like, if I lived in Illinois and I was recruited by a company based in Connecticut, would I take that job? Like, I don't want to move to Connecticut.
Right.
Right? It's just not appealing. But if I'm told that I can go move to Cape Coral, I can go move to Estero, I can go move to Southwest Florida as a whole, that's a lot more interesting. Or if I'm, considering retiring in a couple of years, what state do I want to move to? Well, I want to move to a low income state. Right? It doesn't have
Right.
a death tax, and the employers tell the story. So if you think about the companies that recently moved here, we have Gartner, the world's largest IT research company, recently moved down here. Hertz, the number one or number two largest rental car company, moved down here. Chico's New York fashion brand moved down here. And it's clear that if you're a company that wants to attract top talent, this is the market for you. You're not going to get someone to fly across the country to move to Connecticut, right? It's not going to happen. And with the low income tax, well, zero income tax, it's just really, really appealing. And the demographic shift has been happening for a long time. And
Yeah.
we're seeing it really, really pick up now more than ever. And so for me, that's the number one reason why Florida makes the most sense. And it's beautiful outside. Reed, what kind of hobbies do you have that you get to enjoy the Florida sun?
Oh, I have teenagers. I don't get the luxury of hobbies.
Oh, you
No,
liar.
I mean, boating, fishing. I don't golf as much as I'd like. I go to a lot of, I'm a baseball nerd. I go to a lot of the minor league games when spring training's in town. I like doing that. All three of my kids are athletes. So any weekend I could be at a baseball field or a volleyball court or something. And everybody likes different things. Um, you notice a lot of motorcycles on our roads, because you can go biking 12 months out of the year. A lot of people are into triathlon, and it's a great state for competitive athletes who aren't professional athletes, but they can train 12 months out of the year. So there's just a lot of great things about the lifestyle.
Yeah, absolutely. So as we wrap up today's call, Reed, I definitely want to thank you for your time today. I think that your perspective from a developer standpoint, as far as being realistic, as far as the challenges of building in this current environment, but what's helping us a lot is just a demand of people who want to live here. And that's not a short-term COVID type of stint. That's going to happen for years and years to come. Specifically, if you look at Cape Coral, Cape Coral is only 40 years old, right?
Yeah.
It's a very young city, and it's growing as we speak. I think it's set to double in the next 30 years. So from an investor, it's incredibly important. And Reed, one of the things that I appreciate from working with you so much is that you have great products that are very well priced, and you have that entire team behind to support an investor throughout the entire journey. Reed, as we wrap up today's call, is there one reason why, if you're an investor from anywhere in the country, why it makes sense to buy new construction in Southwest Florida?
The biggest reason why people choose new construction, actually, there's a couple. Number one is just the security of it's brand new. You know, your deferred maintenance costs should be little or nothing for the first 5 to 10 years. I mean, what can really go wrong? I mean, the way we build houses in Southwest Florida with the concrete block exterior walls, stucco, granite countertops, the LVP flooring, there's not a lot that can really go wrong. With the hurricane shutter. So, and the way we have to build them now has changed so much in the 18 years I've lived here. There's much more concrete, much more steel incorporated into, the exterior walls and the footings and the flooring. The houses are mini fortresses, in storms. They really are. I mean, if you lose a shingle, I'm surprised. If it's a newer house, you might be able to go find a house that's 30 or 40 years old, built, it might be a little less expensive, but it's built to a lower elevation. So your insurance will cost more. It doesn't have the same hurricane protection. It may not be concrete block exterior walls. So a lot of people choose new construction for the peace of mind, especially remote investors. They can kind of, to steal a phrase from, an infomercial, they can kind of set it and forget it and just collect their cash flow and, the appreciation numbers.
I would agree 100%. The insurance rate are so much lower because you're built to the highest standards, and everything's new, has a warranty. From a tenant perspective, this is exactly the kind of home they're looking in, something that's new, maintenance free, managed by a professional property management company. So there's reassurance from that end. And from an investment perspective, is this area is growing. And I mean, if I pan the camera around, you would see the amount of growth that's happening throughout the area. And if you spend any time here, it's evident that this area is special, which is a reason why I moved. I came from New Jersey, lived in Miami, and now I'm here in Cape Coral. This area is special. It's undervalued compared to Tampa, Miami, Orlando, and it's going to continue to go up. So with that conclusion, that's enough pitching for today. There'll be some links in the bottom. We can get more information. Reed, I do want to thank you for your time and thank you for joining the Cape Coral Investor Network. I look forward to working with you. And you want to say goodbye, now's the time, but take care.
Take care, everybody. Thank you very much, Alvin. Hey, call this guy. He knows what he's talking about.
I appreciate the plug. Thank you.
All right.